Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into something that I think almost everyone feels at some point. It's this paradox of adult life.
Mhm.
You spend, 20, 30 years bonded to your parents, they shape everything. But then you meet someone, you build a life, and suddenly society, the law,
Mm.
everything expects this new relationship to just jump to the front of the line.
It's the essential conflict, isn't it? Why does the relationship you chose 5 years ago suddenly get legal priority over the one that, literally kept you alive for decades?
Exactly. It feels so counterintuitive.
And it creates this massive internal tug of war. Your loyalty to the past is suddenly in direct conflict with your commitment to the future.
Right. And for this deep dive, the sources we're looking at, legal texts, psychology papers, they don't really care about the emotion of it all. They are all about the cold structural logic.
And that's our mission today. We
Mhm.
want to unpack why this shift happens from two different angles. First, the sort of institutional logic of it all. And second, the much slower, much messier psychological system inside all of us.
Okay, so where do we start? What's the big takeaway from the sources?
Well, they really boil it down to one key distinction. They say modern law views the spouse as a, and I'm quoting here, newly established protected social unit.
Okay, a protected unit. That makes sense.
But then the parent-child relationship, once you're an adult, is legally seen as an already completed primary function unit.
Oof. Completed primary function.
Yeah.
That sounds almost clinical. It's jarring. Let's start right there. How does the system justify calling decades of history a completed function?
It all comes down to how the legal system looks at time and function. Modern governance, it doesn't really prioritize history. It's built to prioritize stability and the future.
So walk us through that, the difference in function between the two relationships.
Okay, so think about the parent-child bond. It's there from birth. Its job, legally and socially, is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Fostering, socializing you, and then independence.
Getting you out the door.
Exactly.
Hmm.
The whole legal task is to help a person successfully exit that first family unit and become their own person, an autonomous citizen. Right. Now, compare that to a spouse or a partner. That's a relationship you voluntarily create as an adult. Its function is entirely forward-looking.
You mean like economic cooperation, mutual support?
All of that. And most importantly, shared risk. You're co-owning a house, you have shared debts, you're there for each other through illness, old age. The law's job here is to make sure that unit is stable enough to face the future together.
I see. So the state's interest in you and your parents is highest when you're a kid who needs protecting,
Right.
and then it just fades away.
Yeah.
But its interest in your partnership is ongoing because that's the unit that's actively dealing with, with life's liability.
Precisely. And that leads directly to the partner being legally designated as the first responsible person.
That's a legal term. First responsible person.
It is. And it's a whole framework for liability. Think about it. What happens in a real-world crisis?
A medical emergency, a bad accident.
Right. In most places, the spouse automatically gets medical power of attorney. They make the end-of-life decisions. They're on the hook for the financial fallout. A parent's legal responsibility, on the other hand, it mostly evaporates once you hit adulthood.
So when the state looks at a situation and asks, okay, who bears the primary responsibility for this person's life and their risks, the answer is almost always the partner.
The parents are just a matter of historical fact.
Wow. And you see this logic everywhere, right? The sources mention something like immigration.
Yeah, the visa example is a perfect illustration of this cold, hard math.
The difference between a spousal visa and a parent visitor visa.
Exactly. Immigration doesn't operate on sentiment.
No.
It's about stability. A spouse is seen as forming a long-term binding tie. They're expected to work, integrate, contribute. They're a stable social member.
Whereas aging parents might be seen administratively as a potential cost. A shorter time horizon, maybe higher medical needs. It's just a calculation.
It is. But here's where the law gets really interesting. It doesn't just prioritize the partnership, it actively protects it. Take spousal testimonial privilege.
That's the thing where you can't be forced to testify against your spouse in court, right?
Yes. And the law gives you that right, but generally not to an adult child regarding a parent.
Why? What's the logic there?
The law is trying to ensure the survival of that new social unit. The theory is that if the state could force you to testify against your partner, it would completely destroy trust in a marriage.
It would turn it into a potential interrogation relationship, as the source said.
Precisely. The system sees a stable marriage as so vital that it literally creates a legal bubble around it.
So the assumption is basically that A broken marriage does more damage to social stability than a broken relationship between an adult and their parent.
At least from a legal and economic standpoint, yes. The parent-child bond is seen as a private, emotional matter at that stage.
Okay, but there's a huge caveat here we have to mention.
A critical one. This whole priority system flips on its head the second a minor is involved. In cases of child protection, custody, abuse, the parent-child relationship is absolutely maximized.
So in the growth stage, the parent-child bond is everything. But in the adult stage, the system does a clean handoff to the spouse to ensure social stability. It's a structural thing, not an emotional one.
Right, but that's where the problem starts.
Because the law can make that switch instantly. You sign a piece of paper and boom, your legal reality changes. But our brains, our emotions, they take years, maybe decades, to catch up.
And that's what we're calling the system migration challenge. It's a perfect analogy. The legal system installs the new software overnight, but your emotional operating system is running on decades of old code.
So you're trying to migrate these core psychological servers. You know, your sense of safety, who you turn to when you're in trouble, that feeling of unconditional backup from your parents over to your partner.
And that migration stalls a lot.
So why is that? Why do so many of us, even deep into a great relationship, still feel like we're running on that old parental server?
Well, the first reason is just the undeniable pull of the low-cost parental backup.
Low cost. What do you mean by that?
I mean, parents offer a few features that are just really hard for a new partner to compete with, at least at first. The first one is irrevocability.
A partner can leave you.
A partner can leave you. A parent, culturally and biologically, almost never does. You can fight with them, you can disappoint them, but they're not going to divorce you for, messing up at work. That emotional floor feels incredibly stable.
Okay, that makes sense. And the second feature.
Low performance requirements. To keep that parental safety net, you don't really need to practice deep communication or daily intimacy or complex conflict resolution. It's just there. A partnership takes constant work to maintain that safety.
And the third one is just inertia.
Historical inertia. It's huge. When a real crisis hits, your brain doesn't think. It just runs the oldest, most practiced program it has.
Your thumb just dials their number before you've even processed what's happening.
Exactly. The subconscious logic is so powerful. It's not, I don't love my partner. It's, if the world is ending, I still, deep down, trust my parents more to handle the sheer chaos. It's a survival instinct.
But it's not just about us, right? This migration requires the parents' cooperation too. Which brings us to reason 2. A lack of parental permission to exit.
This is so critical for anyone thinking about their relationship health. The transfer has to work both ways. The adult child has to be brave enough to leave, and the parent has to be gracious enough to let them go.
And that often doesn't happen.
No, sometimes it's subtle. A parent might use guilt or phrases like, it's for your own good, as a form of control. Or they rely on the adult child for their own emotional stability, treating the new partner like a rival.
So the adult child is still psychologically on duty. They might live with their partner, but emotionally they're still at home trying to manage their parents' feelings.
Yes. Then you have reason 3, which is all about the new relationship, the failure of new system security.
Meaning, if the partnership itself doesn't feel safe.
Your brain won't commit. Your psychological system is, at its core, a safety mechanism. If your relationship is full of conflict or emotional neglect or you fear abandonment, your brain is just not going to move its most vulnerable data to an insecure new server.
It keeps the old one running as a backup.
It has to. You can love someone, you can be committed, but you hold back your deepest vulnerability. You stay, in a way, psychologically semi-single.
Which leads to the final, and maybe the hardest reason this migration stalls. Reason 4. The burden of true solitude.
Yeah, this one is deep. Because completing the transfer is terrifying. It means you have to finally acknowledge that there is no perfect, unconditional safety net anymore.
You have to accept that your partner is also just a person, with their own limits and their own faults.
Yes, and that no one, no matter how much they love you, can catch you every single time. You have to move from someone else will bear the consequences to, I am the primary person responsible for my own life. That realization, that's the final, heaviest part of growing up.
Okay, so if you're listening to this, you're probably wondering where you fall on this spectrum. The sources give some really clear, practical indicators of an unfinished migration, right?
They do. They lay out 3 core principles. If you find that two or more of these are consistently true for you or for your partner, it's a sign that the system is still structurally stuck in the past.
So what's the first one?
1. Your emotional safety net still points primarily to your parents. 2. Major life decisions still require their unspoken, implicit approval. And 3. In any conflict, you prioritize protecting your parents' feelings over protecting your partner's boundary.
Let's break those down. Indicator A, the emotional autodial.
This isn't just about calling your parents when you're stressed. Lots of people do that. The key here is the expectation.
The expectation that they must understand you or that they must have the answer.
Exactly. You reserve your rawest vulnerability for them. Your partner might get the polished, after-the-fact version of the story, but your parents get the real-time crisis.
Okay, and indicator B, the parental approval committee. This one feels sneaky. It can happen even when you're totally independent financially.
It's way beyond just respecting their opinion. A person who's stuck might say, oh, we decided to buy this house, but their actions show this overwhelming fear of their parents' disappointment.
So the real driving force isn't what's best for us. It's what will make my parents happy. Or how can I avoid them being disappointed in me?
Right. That's what psychologists call non-differentiation. You can't structurally separate your own wants from your parents' perceived wants.
And the last one, indicator C, the conflict stance. This feels like the most damaging one for the partnership.
It often is because it's a zero-sum game. When your parents and your partner are at odds, who do you protect?
The stuck person protects the parents.
They do. They'll say things to their partner like, just tolerate it, or don't fight with them, they're my parents. They avoid setting a clear boundary because their core motivation isn't to protect the partnership, it's to maintain their status as the good child.
Because that's where their sense of safety has always come from.
It's their oldest emotional currency. And in that moment, they revert to being a child, which forces their partner into a secondary and often defensive role.
There's another subtle signal too, right? This kind of functional misalignment.
Yes, the whole system gets cross-wired. It's fascinating. The person starts to treat their partner like a parent.
Demanding unconditional tolerance, expecting them to just know what they need.
Exactly, assuming they'll provide that limitless safety net. But then they treat their parents like a delicate partner. They're overly careful, they walk on eggshells, they're afraid to state their own needs for fear of causing conflict.
So what that really shows is that internally, the parents are still the safety base.
Yeah.
The partner is just a functional object, someone to help with goals and companionship, but not the person they entrust with their core safety.
We have to be really clear about this last point. This is a structural problem. It doesn't mean the person doesn't love their partner.
Right. Love is an emotion.
Love is an emotion. But responsibility and risk sharing, that's a structure. So the real question for a relationship isn't, do you love me? It's, do you have the capacity to show up here as a fully responsible adult?
Or is our relationship always going to be shadowed by this third person, this three-person system?
That's the question.
So after this deep dive, we've seen this clash. The cold logic of the system needs us to focus on the future, the spouse for stability. But our own personal history has this powerful, low-cost safety net in our parents that is just so hard to unplug.
And understanding that isn't about blaming anyone. It's not about being immature. The emotional system is just using a program that did work, that did save you in the past.
The goal is just to recognize that this new chapter of your life needs a software update.
Yeah. You have to ask yourself, is my new server, my partnership reliable? And am I actually truly allowing the old server to phase out of that critical safety role?
So as you think about your own life, your own choices, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Psychological growing up isn't about never needing your parents. It's not about never asking for help. It's about ensuring that even when you do need them, they are no longer required to bear the consequences of your adult life. So think about that. What decisions, both structural and emotional, do you need to make to ensure that your partner, the person actually facing the future with you, is truly the first and final responsible person in your life?